just a couple of hours ago, we got the final 3 elite spec revealed for Visions of Eternity. And in this video, I want to cover the Conduit. The Conduit is a really cool elite spec in my opinion that fits perfect to the Revenant class. And it's amazing in terms of flexibility, just like the other two that I already previewed. Links to all of them are in the description down below. And of course, also to the live stream and this really cool album of all the screenshots. Thanks to Shiny Meta for coming up with this. As always, special shout out to all my supporters on YouTube, Twitch and Patreon that help me keep the lights on. And now let's go over this and concisely analyze how the Conduit works and what I think of it, and give you all the trade explanations together with, of course, the utility skills and the profession mechanic. So let's jump straight in. So you can see here, the profession mechanic on top is this affinity meta. So you can 3 pieces of bar that is like the affinity that you're currently in for the legend. And you get a new F2 skill. This is what the current profession mechanic looks like. And you get, of course, the Rasa legend. But let's first start by talking about this affinity. So you get an affinity stack whenever you use a legend skill. So utility skill only, that costs energy. Yeah, makes sense. That's quite easy to use. You will use that anyway, probably in almost any build. And then you get 1 affinity stack. Each stack of affinity improves your F2. We will get to what it does in a bit. And you will lose all affinity when you swap legends. Okay, makes sense. You can alter a lot of stuff with your affinity, and there are a lot of traits that interact with it. So it's really important to understand this is a very important concept of this whole specialization. So building up is quite easy, but costs, of course, energy, and you are incentivized to stick a little bit longer in your legend to get to full affinity, and then you swap to another one and start from scratch. Let's talk about the profession mechanic skills. So they depend on the current legend, just like the, for example, Herald F2. Depending on which legend you are currently in, you will get a different F2 effect. So let's start with the Rasa one. So when you use this, you get Cosmic Wisdom Dervish. That means you get for 4 seconds baseline, you get all stats 100 increased. All attributes just 100 on top of that for 4 seconds. And you attack with another attack every time you strike an enemy. So it does like baseline 200 damage or something. It's, I think, probably quite a bit higher if you have power scaling in there. And that just has a 3-second ICD. It's just another attack to proc all your traits. And of course, the most important part here is that you get all the attribute increases. Diaverdo, this increases depending on how many affinity stacks you have. So if you have 3 affinity stacks, when you use this, you will get 3 seconds longer than the baseline 4. So you will go up to 7. That's actually quite long for getting an all stat increased by 100. And of course, the damage can be quite nice as well. And that's the same for all of those. So you have baseline 4 seconds for all of those, depending on which legend you have currently equipped. But if you have 3 affinity and use it, you get 3 seconds on top of that. So you go to 7 seconds. The one for Malex is the Mesmer one. It just gives you condition damage and expertise, but a little bit more than the Dervish one. And it also gives you on a shorter interval of 0.5 seconds. Bleeding, Torment, and Confusion effect, one of them, a random condition, whenever you strike an enemy. So it's not a power damage, but it's a Condi damage. Makes sense. If you have Malex, you probably want to play Condi. Then if you're going for Centaur stance, you probably want some healing. That's the Monk one. You get some healing power and some vitality. Again, on a 0.5 seconds internal cooldown, you get a healing effect whenever you strike an enemy. Obviously quite nice if you want to heal yourself. Then you have Cosmic Wisdom and Assassin. This is like the offensive power version. You get power and ferocity. And again, you strike an enemy and you inflict cripple, weakness, and vulnerability. Obviously quite annoying conditions, especially in PvP, but even vulnerability in PvE can be really useful. So quite nice just for the power increase. And then you get the last one is the Dwarf. Really strong, you get toughness and concentration. And when you strike an enemy, you get resistance, protection, resolution. Really, really strong. Short duration, but still really, really nice to get a lot of those boons. And you can see they work quite similar. Nothing too special, but quite cool that you empower your core legends, so to say. It's always dependent, of course, which legend you have currently equipped. So if you run Rasa Malex, you have those 2 only, but still probably fitting your build. Before I go to the utility skills, I want to mention, if you like this video and want to see more content like this, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. But now let's talk about the utility skills. So for the utility skills, they are interesting because they have a normal effect that is empowered if you have the legend equipped in the other legend. Yeah, so you have 2 legend slots. One of them will be Rasa if you have those utility skills. But if you want to have the resonance effect, the stronger effect, the empowered effect, you have to get the specific for the healing skill. For example, you have the legend with Centaur stance in the other legend. That will just empower it and will give more healing. Normally you will get normal healing, and the healing will go to allies if you have the Sun Tower stance equipped, and you get another short buff here for, I think it's 4 seconds. No duration. I think, yeah, it's 4 seconds baseline, I think. And it will go to 6 seconds. If you have this shielding hands buff, it's really, really strong. Minus 75% incoming damage. Really good. Really, really strong. And a lot of healing. So this is how this works. You have a baseline effect that will be empowered just by having the stance in the other legend. And then you have Beguiling Haste. It's the assassin one. It's just a teleport. We saw that in the blog post already. It's a teleport that does some damage. And then you can use the skill actually again. It's really cool. You can use it 2 more times with no energy cost or casting time. But it will not inflict daze on the same target, and it has a 900 range, so it's a really, really strong teleport skill. 3 teleports potentially, really good. And then if the resonance effect is, that's an AoE. That's really cool because that you can use it, for example, without having a target, so to get out of nasty situations. If you have some kind of power Rasa build, really cool with Shiro together, makes a lot of sense, really strong, really cool effect. Then you have Gladiator's Defense. It's a stun break that again costs more energy if you stun break actually with it. And you get some resolution as resistance. But if you have the legendary 12 stance equipped, you will actually not get any additional cost on the stun break. So it's a really low energy cost in PvE, probably higher in competitive modes, but still really, really strong. And it will also grant the boons to allies, so resolution, resistance, decent boons to grant to allies. Yeah, nice. It will also inflict some weakness, so you have some defensive utilities with boons and conditions. Then you have the Malex one, which is Hex Eater Vortex. It's just firing projectiles depending on how many condis you cleanse with this skill. So this skill cleanses up to 5 conditions. Depending on how many conditions you cleansed, you will fire additional projectiles. Normally it will just be 1. That's quite fast. It does some torment and some base power damage. But if you remove 5 conditions from you, it fires 6 projectiles. If you, however, have the legendary demon stance Malex equipped, you will always fire all projectiles at the closest enemy instead. So it's like a way more usable skill. So probably the most go-to skill if you play a Conduit Rasa build to spam this one. Makes sense. And then the last one, it has a really long like tooltip here, but Twin Moon Sweep is actually not that bad. It's just an attack that you do in an AoE around you and around the target area. And you get might for each foe struck. And depending on what kind of legend you have in the second slot, you get an additional attack. It will also inflict some bleeding baseline, I think. Yeah. And if you have, for example, the Assassin stance equipped, it will give 50% more damage. And if you and your, so to say, shadow that you use here, attacking the same target, so it's around you and has some 900 range or something like that, if you both hit the same target with this, you will give an Immobilize. That's really potent, really strong AoE Immobilize. And of course more damage. If you are instead using the legendary demon stance, you get some confusion and some power damage scaling. Makes sense, is also condition focused. Legendary Centauran stance is a ranged healing and Conduit cleanse for each enemy struck. So quite nice as well. And then you have the Dwarf stance, which is probably the strongest in my opinion. It will give stability, resistance and resolution for yourself, and it will be a 1-second stun if the enemies are hit by both of your attacks parts. So really, really strong. Having an AoE stun is always something that is quite important, especially if you give some self boons to you to actually make that even stronger. Looks really cool legend. Empowers your build that you're currently running. Whatever build you're running, you will always have an empowered skill, and that makes sense because you will be either Condi focused, power focused, defensive focused, healing focused. There are so many different ways to play this. Really flexible. I like it a lot. Now let's talk about the traits, because they alter actually the gameplay quite a bit. Of course, the first one explains how this works, so we can skip it. The second one, Boisted Bonds, just gives you more attributes depending on your equipped legends. So you get power with the Assassin stance, healing power with the legendary Centauran stance, and it goes the same for all of them. The Entity stance, so Rasa, will give you 50 to all attributes, and you gain additional attributes when the legend is active. So if you are like passively, currently you are in Rasa, and you have Assassin stance in the second one, you get 120 power. But if you go into Shiro, you will get another 60 power on top of that, so you will go to 180 power on top of that, plus the 50 that you get from Rasa having in the second. So it's really, really cool. A lot of attributes that you get from this. Really, really strong. And then you have Numinous Gift, gain boons when you use Cosmic Wisdom, which is your F2. Yeah, nice might, resistance, stability, protection, fury, which current legend you have equipped. Makes a lot of sense, really cool. And yeah, probably quite potent in all game modes because of that. Then we have the first one, not that much text, but actually quite nice. Gain affinity when using a weapon skill that costs energy. So instead of having only the legend skills that give you affinity, also the weapon skill will give affinity. So you can build up affinity way more frequently, and that interacts with a lot of traits. You will see almost all the traits interact with affinity. So that's quite good to get more affinity. The second one is more defensive. Remove conditions from yourself when you reach maximum affinity and when you activate Cosmic Wisdom. So you have 2 Conduit cleanses for yourself when you reach maximum affinity, which is 3 baseline, and you get this Conduit cleanse as well when you use Cosmic Wisdom. Don't forget, if you swap legends, the affinity will go down to 0, so you can stack it up and get another Conduit cleanse again. So it makes a lot of sense in competitive modes probably. And then you have Expanded Consciousness, probably a must-have in PvE. Your maximum affinity is increased by 2, so instead of 3, you have now 5. You can see it here. Really, really strong. Just more affinity, and this will, if you use your baseline attack of the F2, you will get 5-second increase to the 4-second baseline. You get 9 seconds instead. And that's already quite good. And of course, it interacts with a lot of upcoming traits as well. When you swap legends, you reduce the recharge of Cosmic Wisdom for each point of affinity you had before swapping. So really cool. That means that you just decrease the Cosmic Wisdom recharge when you have, for example, 5 affinity. You will get 10 seconds of recharge and can spam it almost instantly again. Really, really cool trait. Interacts very well with, for example, Expanded Consciousness, but in general, it might be a good trait. Lingering Determination give you very interesting endurance and affinity. So it heals you and gives you endurance when gaining affinity. So quite good. Not too much endurance, but might be still quite good because you can get affinity quite frequently. And when you legend swap, you gain just 1 affinity if you have at least 3 affinity or something. I think they said 2 or 3, I'm not completely sure. But if you have some amount of affinity before swapping legends, which should be always the case, you will get 1 affinity back. So you will always start with 1 affinity baseline. Can be really good if you want to get to the highest amount possible. And of course, it also instantly heals you and gives you some endurance because of that. And then you have Boundless Knowledge. This is just increasing the Cosmic Wisdom efficiency. So you get more power baseline from Assassin's Stance, you get more from Dervish to all of them, and that makes just all of the stats a little bit higher. And you are like a big like stat stick. You have this boosted bonds, and you get this Cosmic Wisdom effect on top of that. So you actually have quite a lot of stats that you can actually go and just deal a lot of damage or be a lot of healing output or just tanky. It's actually crazy how many stats you can get if those 2 traits interact with each other. Then you have Mistfire. It's a really strong one. Apply conditions to enemies when you disable them on a 1-second ICD. I'm not sure if that's in competitive modes different, probably, but that sounds really nasty. So if you CC them and you have a lot of CCs on Revenant, you give them also a condition. And that makes a lot of sense because typically if you run this, you probably want to have a Conduit build. And then damaging and dazing enemies around you when you activate Cosmic Wisdom. That means that Cosmic Wisdom is now also dazed, which will also proc this trait. And you obviously have a really annoying like combo potential there. And of course, don't forget, your Cosmic Wisdom still gives you the stats. So really, really cool. Then you have Twofold Embodiment, that's probably the coolest one here. Using Cosmic Wisdom also grants you the bonuses of your other equipped legend. So now Cosmic Wisdom will give you the normal legend that you currently are in, but also the other one. And so both effect, and that's obviously really strong just for the stats and also just the utility that you have there. So you can always get maximum value of that. Really, really cool. And then Perpetual Wisdom is really strong because it gives you a very interesting way of using your Cosmic Wisdom, because the effects of Cosmic Wisdom now last indefinitely. So you get the stats permanently. It's really, really strong, and it will drain energy while it's active, but it will only drain 3 in PvE at least. That's not too bad. It's not good, but it's obviously not too bad for the stats that you get there. And when you swap legends, gain energy for each point of affinity you had before swapping. So you can get a lot of energy using this trait. If you have, for example, Expanded Consciousness, you have 5 affinity possible, and then you get 25 energy back because of that. That's actually surprisingly much, especially if you want to use the Perpetual Wisdom for the Cosmic Wisdom indefinitely. Really cool interactions. You have a lot of changes to affinity. It's really focused around that, but this is like a very selfish spec. It can heal to some extent its allies, but doesn't have any supportive power in terms of like healing with quickness or alacrity on top of that. So it's very selfish, really strong, I would say, as a power or Conduit build. You will see that as a DPS build in PvE for sure. I think it will be a really good bruiser in competitive modes as well, but you will not see this as a support. That will not work. It will only work in competitive modes as a support, maybe, but I think in PvE there will be no Conduit support. That much is for sure. So let me know your takes in the comments down below. I enjoyed this class. I think it's really flexible and really cool, but not as flexible as I actually hoped. So let me know your takes, like I said. If you like this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks again to all my supporters. I hope to see you all in the next video.